Hello, hello, welcome back to Loki's Librarian. If you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and on Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze, where I review a book and mix up a cocktail. This month we're going to be looking at true crime, and since I start a 5-Sunday month with a fiction book, this week's book is The Trial by Franz Kafka. The accompanying cocktail is Kafka does Jalisco, and it is 1 ounce of Blanco Tequila, 1 ounce of Becherovka, 3/4 ounce each of lime juice and honey syrup. So let's do this. Tiny bit of backstory here. Franz Kafka was an Austrian-Czech Jewish author. He was born in 1883 and died in 1924, just before his 41st birthday. And his name is now used to describe absurd situations, usually from which there is no escape. So if something is Kafkaesque, it's a quagmire of absolute confusion and surreality from which there seems to be no escape, usually having to do with bureaucratic quagmires, because bureaucracies are always like that. They're always quagmires of confusion that nobody knows how to escape from. That's why bureaucracies suck. So when you hear somebody say Kafkaesque, it means it's something that's senseless, disorienting, and often with menacing complexity, like bureaucracies. Right? Surreal distortion, looming danger. That's what people mean by Kafkaesque. I say 1 ounce each, right? And that basically sums up the trial. It's confusing, there's surreal distortion, it's senseless, it's disorienting. I mean, the book opens with Joseph K., and we are never given his last name. It's just Joseph K., period, and it's just K throughout the book. But okay, K wakes up one morning, and his usual breakfast has not been delivered to his room. And after laying there for a bit, and this was written in the early 20th century, where when you rented a room in a boarding house, meals were frequently included. You would pay extra, but it was included. So his usual breakfast has not been delivered. After laying there for a bit and realizing his breakfast is not forthcoming, he opens the door to find 2 men in the outer chamber, and they advise him that he is under arrest. No idea what for. They don't tell him. The charge is literally never mentioned anywhere in the book. You have no idea what Kay did that landed him in this situation. He has no idea, at least I'm sure the author had some idea, but it is never mentioned, and we're going to come back to that in just a bit. So I personally would presume not murder, only because he, after being told he was under arrest, he's allowed to go to work, which is a bank where he was the chief clerk. But it's something bad enough that kids later in the book describe him as, quote, an horrible man. And when he's allowed to go to work, he's allowed to go to work in the company of 3 of his subordinates. No idea why they called him in. Nothing's ever explained. Let me shake this up. Now, Kay assumes the entire thing is horrible lies. I think that's even like the first line of the book, is somebody had been spreading lies about Joseph K. Because he can't think of anything he's done, anything that could have landed him in any kind of legal hot water. But it's very confusing to him and to me. And I dare say that part of this is the difference between growing up American in the late 20th, early 21st century versus growing up under the Habsburg dynasty at the end of the 19th and early 20th centuries. In America, if they don't tell you what you're under arrest for and then they just let you go about your day like nothing unusual happened, you'd assume it was a joke. Especially if they're not uniformed policemen, right? You're going to tell everybody you know about this prank that some rando tried to play on you, and you're going to have a good laugh at the bar. We brag about that shit because we're insane. But for Kay, the social stigma of being placed under arrest was such that he doesn't say a word. He just quietly deals with the stress of it at home and at work, although slowly his work life begins to devolve and he's less and less able to focus and concentrate on what's at work because of this pending trial. He receives a call a few days later advising him that his court case would be this coming weekend, and he's given directions to a building where the court will be held. And it's not the usual courthouse. It's like an apartment building somewhere. So again, Americans would be like, fuck right off with that nonsense. I am not going to some random building just because you say I have to be there. But Kay wants to clear the air and sleep easy at night, so he goes to the building. And assuming at 9 a.m., because that's when courts usually happen, although he wasn't actually given a time, he just kind of assumed that. And it acknowledges that. He's like, it's got to be 9 o'clock. That's when courts always open. So he gets to the building and finds out he's not given a room number. So now he has to figure out which room he's supposed to go to in this bizarro land court. And he starts knocking on doors. He came up with a story about looking for a pipe fitter or something like that. And when they're all like, no, everybody answers the door and like, no, he's not here. Why don't you try down there? So he just kept knocking on doors until he landed at the right apartment. And at this point, he's fucking annoyed because he doesn't know why he's under arrest. He's stressed. He's an hour late. He doesn't get there until after 10. And the judge looks at him like, how dare you be late to my court? Be on time next time. And he just goes off on him, gives this very impassioned speech about the absurdity of the whole situation and how ridiculous it is that here he is and he's never even been told what he's under arrest for. And this impassioned speech goes over like a fart in church. Everybody looks at him like he's the guy who done wrong, not like they're the ones who failed to tell him anything. It's not bad. It has, like the honey helps balance out the tequila, which is good because tequila still has a very strong smell about it. But it's not bad. I will not be drinking 2 of these. I will not be as drunk this week as I was last week. That's for sure. From there, the die is cast for a very confusing story. And it really is confusing. I mean, if you go to the Wikipedia page for the trial, you'll understand why. I mean, Kafka wrote the opening and ending chapters first, with the middle parts kind of bundled together in loose leaf chapters of, loose leaf pages of notebooks and very loose chapters with no real indication of what order the chapters should be set in. One chapter literally ends, quote, "This chapter is left unfinished," end quote. So we don't really know what's going on. Wikipedia says the story starts on the morning of Kay's 30th birthday. Not sure where they got that from. I don't remember seeing that anywhere in the book. The only age mentioned is the last chapter, which is the evening before Kay's 31st birthday. Literally says that, on the evening before Kay's 31st birthday. So, well, I mean, we all know Wikipedia should be taken with a grain of salt, and that's fine. It might just be that they're self-inserting Kay here. I'm assuming that it's Franz Kafka, but maybe it's supposed to be Joseph Kafka, right? Maybe he's self-inserting, in which case he started this book when he was about 30. So, okay, sure, why not? Throughout the book, Kay makes a connection with a painter who's, he's directed to, right? One of his clients come in and says, hey, I know about your trial. You should really meet this painter, Tintorelli. And he's, he can help you out. So Kay goes to the painter's place, and turns out the painter is a court artist, who says that as Kay keeps asserting his innocence, which basically is completely irrelevant because the case has already been predetermined, there are 3 possible ways to delay things indefinitely. Now, the first is absolute acquittal, which is not going to happen, right? I mean, the outcome already predetermined, innocence is not on the table, so absolute acquittal is not going to be happening. But of course, that's ideal when you're innocent, to be told, yes, you're correct, you're innocent, nothing to see here, you're free to go, right? Neat. This should be really good. This is almost like a twist on a margarita. Should have put salt on the rim. Anyways, so absolute acquittal is off the table. The other 2 are apparent acquittal and deferral. Apparent acquittal is where friends of the judges, and here the painter offers to assist Kay, go around to all the judges he knows and gets them to sign a petition basically saying that they believe Kay to be innocent and so he should be acquitted. And if Kay is lucky, one of the judges who signs will be the judge assigned his case. That's just a double barrel of luck, because then the judge is like, why am I wasting my time seeing this case? Off with him. Now, the downside of this is, since it's not an absolute acquittal, Kay could immediately be rearrested and the process will start all over again. Basically, you're rolling the dice on that one, right? You could be let off and scot-free forever, or you could be rearrested within 10 minutes. Who knows? Deferment involves the defendant and those helping him have to keep the trial constantly in its earliest stages. You don't want anything to move beyond the date being kicked down the road, basically, by constantly keeping in contact with the court, like constantly. And this ensures that a verdict is never entered. So it's ongoing, it's sustained, but is more of a sure thing because, hey, as long as you're still under arrest or whatever, then nothing else is going to happen. Kay is basically wound tighter and tighter by the events of the book, and he tries to figure out why he's under arrest, what are the charges, and does the court actually have any authority over him. And throughout, people periodically approach him and ask about his trial, and he has no idea how they know about the trial since he himself does not talk about his trial, and he has no idea how they know about it. His uncle introduces him to a lawyer, and while waiting for the lawyer, his uncle introduces him to another lawyer, and he does hire the lawyer initially, but it seems to him eventually the lawyer is not actually doing anything, like anything at all. And this is before he met the painter, he met with the lawyer, and then after he met with the painter, he's like, this lawyer sucks, he's not doing anything for me, I'm going to go fire him. And while he's waiting to talk to the lawyer to fire him, he meets with one of the lawyer's other clients who has been under trial for 5 years at this point. They've been doing the deferment route, basically. and a more desperately depressed man you have never seen. And it's strongly hinted that this is what Kay's future looks like if he goes with the deferral route. Throughout the book, you learn that most of the people Kay interacts with in some way are connected to the court, which adds an element of this must be why he doesn't just leave to the book, because where the hell would he go that's outside the reach of this phantom court? This must be why the book is seen as a monument to inefficient, overwhelming bureaucracies, although really it's quite an efficient way to keep tabs on people if everybody works for the government. Just gonna leave that right there. Now, this book was published posthumously. It is very much incomplete. It ends quite abruptly with Kay being led out to a field where he is summarily executed, but you never know why. You never know what the charges were. Assuming the arrest did happen on his 30th birthday, the events of the book happen over about 1 year, because it's the night before his 31st, that he's executed. I said it's a year, not about. And he is not surprised when the executioners show up. He goes with them willingly, knowing what is going to happen. The weight of the events has him being a passive participant. I mean, he's just broken at this point. I mean, he's not quite willing, right? Because ideally, he even says, they expect me to kill myself, and I'm not going to do that. But he just passively sits there and takes it, and makes them kill him, but still, he's just passive about it. He doesn't offer any resistance. He doesn't try to run away. He just, okay, this is my fate. Again, very anti-American. I'm not sure if this book is popular in America, but in America it would be like, fuck that. We idolize people like, Billy the Kid and Jesse James and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So yeah, I don't see us just being like, okay, I will just quietly sit there and take my death like a man, I guess. This book is often ranked as one of the 20th century's most important literary works. I honestly don't get it. And again, so is The Great Gatsby, and that book would have been grossly improved with the addition of zombies, so who knows? I found this book confusing and disjointed. It was tough to read, not just because the print is absolutely tiny. Look at how tiny that print is, but there are these big blocks of text with very little relief in them. It was just, I didn't care for it. Didn't care for it. I mean, he's like the George R.R. Martin of the 19-teens. I mean, he began the book in 1914 and didn't finish it before he died 10 years later. And as the great Larry Correia says, see, it's not that hard. Although, to be fair to Kafka, he was writing in a literal war zone. World War I, right? The Habsburg dynasty just collapsed. He's an Austro-Czech Jew. Literal war zone. Okay, maybe, but the war was over for, 8 years before he died. He could have finished it in that time. But I do think that anybody who has ever sat on hold for over an hour with the IRS can agree that bureaucracies are deadly dull and stifling. So if you have to deal with them in anything like the extended fashion that Kay did, you might passively await your death, like a dog, which is Kay's dying thought as they stabbed and strangled him. Fucking, this is weird. I get the surreality. I actually was looking for a surreal cocktail, couldn't really find anything that grabbed my fancy. This one, the Kafka Does Jalisco, I think was more of a tie to his other famous work, The Metamorphosis, but I will probably not be reading that either. I don't know. This is not going on my favorite to be read again and again pile. I mean, read it once, make up your own mind, but for me, this will probably go on my donate pile. I don't get it. And that's it for this week. Maybe reading all this true history and nonfiction books is destroying my ability to see the possibilities of horror in fiction, because reality is way fucking worse than fiction on any day. But that's it. That really is it. If you guys liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Bye.